Welcome to the Intern Group Keynote Speaker Series and Workshop Series, guys. So for today's session, we have Santiago Bermudez, and his talk is titled Emerging Tech, the Future is Just Around the Corner. So he'll be talking to us about what disruptive technologies are and what they bring with them. So a bit about Santiago. He is the Chief Technology Officer of Talanta, an Argentine entrepreneur, investor, and professor with a mission to support the creation of new digital business models with social and environmental impact. So during the session, if you have any questions, feel free to put it into the chat. We'll have a Q&A session allocated at the end after Santiago finishes his presentation. Or at the end during the Q&A session, you can pop up an emoji and you can ask the question yourself. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us, Santi. Over to you.
Normally, I'm so, I will say, nervous during these sessions because basically I'm a software engineer. I came from an introvert life, but I challenge myself every day. And this talk is a little bit about that, challenging ourselves through knowing a little bit more about technology. So first of all, I'm gonna present myself by my habits. Normally, I wake up all the days very early in the morning. I love to travel a lot. I have a digital nomad kind of life. I really love gardening. I wake up very early. I start reading, writing, meditating, and then I go to my work. And when I try to explain my entire work life, normally it's a little bit difficult because right now, as Manami was saying, I'm the CTO of Talanta, but also director or board member in several other companies. I also had a big startup in Latam that was sold some years ago, and these are all the organizations in which I'm involved right now. I'm not gonna talk so much about this. Let's start. So I don't know which expectations do you have right now, but if we have like less expectations, then the outcome is much better. So what I'm going to ask you is to flow with the talk with the incoming learnings. And also, I don't know if all of you saw the video we sent about Jack and Draka, but it's a little bit about that talk today, and we will see a little bit deeper that talk at the end. The first thing I want to mention always when I'm speaking about technology is to understand the changes we are living all around the world. Because of technology, we have to understand what happened in the past, I would say, 10, 12, 15 years. So if we think about that a little bit and we go back through to 2010, we were only 1,500 million people connected to internet in the world. But if we come a little bit closer to these days, in the last year we were almost 5,000 million users connected to internet. So which kind of differences we are seeing because of this in the world? Which kind of things changed a lot in the last 10, 12, 15 years? And what does it mean for us to have 3 times the amount of people that we had connected to internet 10 years ago? When we are talking about this, we are talking about a lot of changes that are not only the new services, new products we can consume over internet. We are talking much more about how society is changing right now. What does it mean to have all that people not only connected to the old internet, in which we were able only to browse some information, to acquire a little bit of new knowledge, but now connected to interact, to express themselves, to be all the time hearing and talking through internet. So for me, one of the most shocking ways in which we can see this is through these images. Anybody here knows something about these images? Do you know where are these images, in which countries, cities, when? You can open your mic and answer, or you can answer in the chat too. Let's see if someone recognize one of these images.
One of them is in Chile.
Yeah, we have one in Chile, one in Paris, so you're so good. I did the same exercise a few weeks ago, and we had no responses, no good responses. So yeah, the one that we have in our left top, it's in Chile. The one that it's in our right is in Paris, and the one left and down, do you know where is that? Bottom left? I don't know exactly a city, but yeah, it's Egypt. Really good. Beautiful. It's the first time the team discovered all the images. So those are protests that were in different countries, in Egypt, in Paris, in Chile. All of those big, massive movements had several things in common. The first one they have in common is that for the governments, it was really hard to treat each one of these protests, because basically they had no specific leaderships in those. So why they didn't have specific, strong, unique leaders in each of these big, massive movements? When we analyze a little bit more this, we see that, for example, other thing that all of them have in common is that all these events were called by social networks, where all of these events started in Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and so on. And that's one of the main causes why these events didn't have a unique, strong leader for the governments to deal with, to negotiate with. So these, for me, are three images that represents a lot of what is changing right now. When we are talking about technology, we are not talking about little changes in the world that came through a new service or just a new app that we can download and use in our cell phones. We are talking more about social changes. And so we have to understand in a deeper way how technology is changing our world. And this is just a quick look on how societies are changing, on how the governments are changing to communicate, to negotiate with the social movements, for example. And if we try to understand a little bit better how is this affecting all the world, first of all, the internet adoption statistics that we can have. And if you see, almost all around the world, we are having like, in average, 70% of internet adoption. And when we see this, and we start talking about how technology is changing our societies, we can, for example, challenge ourselves about what basic human rights are. No, because we can, for example, challenge ourselves on, is it, what kind of rights are impossible to access for most of the people who don't have internet connection, for example? Can we have a good education without internet today? Can we have a good or kind of good connection with the governments, with the institutions in our countries without internet today? And if we try to understand a little bit more what's happening with those users these days, we can see some other data over there. We can start asking ourselves where the people are using internet, for what, for how many, for how long, for which kind of content they use. When I was saying that the world is changing because we are interacting and not more being only consumers of information in internet, I'm talking a little bit about this number here, about the 4 billion people connected through social media, because we are, in some way, we stopped being only consumers and we started being co-creators of the new internet, of the information that it's there, of all what we see every day. And if we, for example, ask ourselves how many time do we spend with our cell phones, mobile phones right now, if you see this information in average in the world, we spend mostly 7 hours in our cell phones. What are we doing there? 7 hours a day. So it's a big part of our day. 30% of our time, we are spending it in our mobile phones. What are we doing there? Normally, consuming internet services through apps, through our browsers. Normally, sharing ourselves in some way by our social media. Normally, we are consuming information, not always the right information, not always the true information. We are consuming information that it's there, and that's it. And we have to understand how to consume all that information. And I will say, like, normally we are there interacting with other people. This is at least one new way of being connected with each other. Now, the differences that we are seeing with, I don't know, 5, 10 years ago, if we think 15 years ago, the smartphones were not in our minds. Now we are used to them. We are, in some way, we are having them as our normal day-to-day life. Let's try to understand which kind of changes we are seeing because of this. And these are 2 images in the same place, in the same event, that it's not so frequent, these were the two only events that we had in the last 17 years of this kind. Do you recognize which event is that one? The two events in which we had new popes. The 2005 was the Benedictus 16 one, and the 2013 was the Franciscus one. So what changes there? Like what we see in a first view is like a huge number of new devices in our hands. And what does it mean? It means, for example, that most of the people that were there were seeing that event through their devices, not directly. It means also that we were spending much more energy in the second image than in the first one. But also, it was a way in which that event was shared with all the world. We didn't have, as we had every other time in the past, just a few point of views of those events. We had, I would say, one point of view of each one of those users who record those moments in photos, in videos, and then share them into their social networks with their own feelings, with their own point of views, and this event probably it's never going to be the same. How are we going to be able to see this event in the future? In the past, in 2005, we were able only to see it in the official television, normally news, or in our newspapers. That was all. In 2013, we were able to see it through the point of view of many people. What is going to happen in the next Pope election? I will, and today in 2023, everything is overshared. And what does it mean to be overshared? Is that good? It's not a bad thing, because if we say overshared, we are in some way assuming that it's not so good. Why it's not so good then? And what about the future? Do we envision a future like this one, in which we are not going to any event? We are just in our houses with those beautiful new devices, or not so new, in our hands, and just seeing a quietly real experience, but probably not the one to be there, of being there. So when we think about this and we see these images, normally all of us, we are thinking, no, that's not a probable future. That's not gonna happen. I'm not gonna be here with those devices in my face, in some way blocking my vision with those, and experiencing all events through these kind of devices. But if we think in 15 years ago, we were not able to think in a world in which each person in the world is spending 7 hours of their time, of our time, with smartphones. So this could happen, yeah, could not, maybe. It depends probably on the adoption of these devices and how the cost is going down in the future, on how the evolution of the metaverse, multiverse are. But this is one of the possible futures. So why I'm mentioning this? Because we are so used to see some events that are not normal, not probable in our minds, that are not things we think about, but then the things happens, and we simply naturalize them. We simply rationalize them. That's what, I don't know if you hear about this, but that's what the Black Swan theory talks about. If you didn't hear about this Black Swan theory, I will share like just a little definition of this. And this started because we were, as humans, we were only seeing all around the world swans that were white, just white. And someday in Australia, some people found a bird like exactly equal to swan, but black. And that was a really big change in their minds. But then we see those changes and we rationalize them, we naturalize them. And that is normally what happened with us, with all the big events that were not so probable in our minds, that were not even an idea on our minds. But then we see them we see all those changes caused by those events as normal. Why? Because that is a way in which we as humans protect ourselves. It's to adapt ourselves to change. So let's think about some changes in the last few years. What about the mask? The masks that we are using right now in a so normal way. If we think about those masks, some years ago, maybe 3-4 years ago, for most of us was something totally uncommon. But now, in our lives, after that black swan that was the pandemic, that it is the pandemic, we simply normalize all those changes. It's in our life. No one is asking themselves what's changing around us because of that, because of those masks that we are using, and so many other changes. Let's talk about a little bit about the changes in technology in the last few years. If we see how industries are changing, we start seeing some big changes. And I don't know if each one of us think about all the changes behind the big change we are seeing in each industry. So for example, let's talk about the TV, the television. The television was the way in which we consume a lot of all the movies, series, just 10, 15 years ago. Again, just a few years ago, we started consuming on demand this kind of products. It was only with Netflix, normally with Netflix, during the first years of this change. Now, we are seeing a lot of services, on-demand services that replace the television. But what are the changes behind this? Which one are the big changes that are happening in the television industry, in the media creation industry? What's happening with the advertising? The advertising is changing in the television because it's less. We have less people seeing television. What happens with the people who works for advertising in television? What happens with the people who produce content for television? What happens with all those works that are affected because of these changes? And if we want to talk about a change that it's more visual for all of us, let's talk about how Uber or any kind of Uber are changing our day-to-day life. I don't know how is this in your cities, but when someone visits now Argentina after maybe 10 years, all the people who visit Argentina after 10 years, they see the city in a different way. Why? Because we have half of the taxes that we had 10 years ago. Yeah, that's affecting how we are seeing our cities, but that's affecting all those people who are working there too. So are we creating so many new jobs to be sure that we are replacing them? Are we changing our laws, our governance as citizens to adapt ourselves to these changes? If we see in the last 10, 15 years, we had so many changes. Some of these industries changed really fast in the past maybe 20 years. If we talk about long distance communication, we replace our phones cards that I don't know if you use some of them, but when I was young, really young, I had to call my mother that was not in my country. I used some cards of telephone that were like really the way of in which I can speak with my mother for 1 hour, not being like spending a lot of money. Then Skype came and changed that long distance communications. But now we see as normal to just being in a video conference with someone in our hands. When I was a child, I used to see a series that was called in Spanish Los Supersónicos. I don't know how it's that in English. If someone knows and can write it in the chat, thank you. In which we saw as fiction the people talking by their phones or devices in a video conference. Thanks, Martin. And now we normalize that. It's normal for us. What happened there? What's changing there? What's changing in our day-to-day relations with each other because of these superficial changes? Because we see this and we see this as, hey, I have a new tool that it's enabling myself to, for example, communicate with people that it's not close to me in a physical way, and that's awesome. But what's changing in our way of communicating with each other? I'm not gonna go through all of these changes. I just want to like make a post on this one. I don't know how much of you had Blockbuster, the international video renting store in your countries, but in all of the countries that we had this brand, we saw a change in our cities because all of those stores were closed in 2-3 years. All of those workers had to reskill themselves to be working somewhere else. All our city around changed because of these changes. These were big stores in the main points of the city normally. But if you didn't have a Blockbuster in your city, you can think about the Kodak stores. The Kodak stores disappeared too in a really fast way. What happened with the thousands and thousands of employee Kodak had? And let's talk a little bit about this that we started a few minutes ago. When we are talking about Uber and we start to think about which kind of changes we are seeing because of technology change, because of technology, because of new technology that we are seeing, if we try to think about how Uber is changing our societies, how technology is changing our societies, we can see which were the most important challenge that Uber had as a startup in the world to offer their services. And if we try to go deeper there, that it's only because the technology is only bringing us a new way in which we can move ourselves in our cities. That's all. But if we go deeper, the most important challenge they had were normally the laws in our countries. That was the big challenge for Uber. And what did we do? Each one of us here, everyone who took an Uber or any one of those in the past, was that brand legal? Was that brand making illegal services in your countries? That was not the case in my country a few years ago. And that didn't stop us to use those services. And the laws were changing to adapt our societies to this kind of changes. So we are seeing how our governments, our laws are changing because of new technology in the world. So we have to be sure that every time we are thinking about new technology, we have to see this in a way in which we analyze how can the society change because of this? How can the laws change because of this? How can our behaviors as humans, as friends, as workers are changing because of these new technologies that we are seeing? And which are the changes we will see in the future because of this? I know that when I talk in this way about this, normally I provoke a kind of fear because of technology changes. There are some technology is just a tool, yeah. And there are some changes that are really good for our society, some changes that are not so good because the tool is not used in a really good way. But if we want to understand what changes would come through technology, we can make a little introduction of what the big global problems, the SDG Sustainable Development Goals are. And if we start seeing how technology is tackling each one of those, we will see probably the most important changes that are going to happen in the world and in our societies and lives in the future. So let's talk a little bit about some of those changes that are coming. For example, and for this, I'm going to share some news. Maybe not so close news, because this one is from 2013, and this one, it's a really good news for the world. Neuroscientists plant false memories in the brain. that is really good. It's really good for a lot of people who had a, a really disrupting bad event in their lives and they are not able to treat them. If we can in some way help those people to help those moments, to cure those moments in their lives, this is a big positive change. But the way in which we use this technology is going to be the deal breaker on if we are using the technology for good things or not so good things. Let's think about, for example, someone going to a judge and to a court and declare herself guilty because of a planted memory. That could happen if we have the technology. That could happen. So this is just a tool, and the tools are there. This is a news from like almost 10 years ago. This technology, it's advancing a lot. If we think about how computing is gonna change in the next years, we have to be seeing the quantum computers that are coming. Only some big, really big technology companies are developing this industry with the defense ministries normally in the big governments. When there is a study in which a group of computer scientists showed the world how all our security, our passwords, our private info could be affected because of the new quantum computer that is coming. Are those companies gonna share that information before using it? Are those companies gonna share that technology before using it? If we see some other changes that are happening, like our food being prepared by artificial intelligence, our food being not the same food we were used to, that could be a really good change in the world. That could be a really ecological change in the world. But are we seeing which other changes are behind that? Are we seeing how this is affecting our bodies, our health? Are we seeing how the industries are being affected, the food industries are being affected because of this change? And the one that I like more is this one, because I think all of us in our at least in our when we were a child, we were like dreaming in how to record our dreams. And if I really like this research, and it's from a group in which they started like seeing our brains when they showed a white paper and then a white piece of paper and then a black one, and they start seeing the brain at the same time they were showing one or the other to a person. And then when they were able to distinguish which one was just seeing what happened in our brains, then they moved themselves forward and started dividing those pieces of papers and showing some white, some black, some white, some black, and they started putting colors over there, and they started not showing only pictures to these people in these studies, but also videos. And the last news I had about this about this research was that they started training people by giving them 200 videos on YouTube, and they record the brain signals with those 200 videos. And then they record the signals of those people during their dreams. And they start seeing parts of their dreams in a video that it's not so good, that it's not high quality definition, but maybe it's how we saw the first television shows 70 years ago, and now we are gonna be improving that technology until the moment in which we can see what someone is just thinking about. This technology can disrupt, of course, all the world. That it's there. Now it's in a research stage, but it's there. So this is coming. And why I'm talking about all this? First of all, because I think we have to make a better understanding of how we use the technology. If we are seeing all the technology around us, and if we are now really aware of the changes that are happening. And when I think about this, I also think about the way in which we are using our technology. And if you saw Shaka Nuraka's video, that he, with his 13, 14 years old, he made a huge change in the way we were making diagnosis of some illness. He was not like, of course he's a genius, but he was not so special. He was able to look for all that information in internet. He was doing his best with all the information that was there. He was using some technology that was already there, but for different uses. So what I'm trying to say with all of these is we have several tools around us, probably one tool for each problem we can think about, that it's introducing in our lives new technology, that it's solving of the problems we had. And if not, we can take those specific new technologies and using it for solving new problems. What I'm saying in some way is that all the work it's in our hands just because of technology. Today, nowadays, we have each one of us in this call, we have much more information than the one that our presidents had 30 years ago. We have access to many tools that our presidents 30 years ago. All what we can do is just there in our hands, in our mobile phones, just there for us to understand what the technology is and how it can change our lives. And if we understand that, then we can understand that we can also produce new services, new ways of communication, new ways of new disrupting changes in our industries, just introducing the technology that it's around there, and we can make a change in our world. Hopefully, using these new tools in a really good way. And I will stop there and open the mic to each one of you for any questions you have about this or any other thing you want to know about, I don't know, the work I do every day or technology in general.
Thank you so much, Santi. Like I mentioned in the beginning of the call, you have a way of simplifying things. Like I'm a tech idiot, so you made that really, the presentation really clear. So thank you very much for that. And as Santi said, and as I put in the chat, if you have any questions, feel free to pop it into the chat or put up an emoji. So Emily, go for it.
How do you recommend that companies integrate a healthy or a tech innovation positive culture? Because I mean, I think like Manami said, like there's we have people that are all over the spectrum, but as you're speaking, like the more I understand that you can't just not be a tech person. Like the person that's not a tech person is going to be marginalized if they're not already. So I think like on a company or on an organizational and like on a personal professional level, what can we do to kind of create and promote that kind of culture?
Okay, thanks, Emily, for that question. I would say like the first thing that comes into my mind is to try to have a continuous improvement culture in which all the people in the organization is able to propose new processes, new technologies to be introduced in our processes, and that it's first tested with that person that proposed it, and then tested with more people, and then trying to make improvements in all our processes in the organizations. I would say that's the first thing to do. The second one is to make all the people in our organizations make them sure that with technology we can improve our businesses, we can improve our tasks, we can move our tasks to more, I will say, more complex tasks and leave the simple ones for the technology we have in our hands. So what I'm saying is, normally people fears, it's fear because of all these changes, and we have to improve how the people see the new technology. So to make a culture in which every people in our company is able to try new technology, to test new technology, and we in some way we challenge our people with that. We propose that as a culture. I think that's the main thing we can do. And if we are not tech specialists, no worries. It's becoming easier every day. It's just easier every day. We have to leave our fears behind and just try, test. You're not gonna break anything. So if you are not doctors, you can try it, and that's all.
Amazing. Thanks for the question, Emily. So we have 5 more minutes left. So Santi, I have one more question for you. So as you know, all these technology changes are coming by, and it's a really fast-paced change as well. So how can kids or interns or students leverage or take advantage of these technological changes for their careers, their professional lives, or just, their personal lives in general?
Thanks, Manami, for that question. This is something that I normally share with all my university students. And let's be sincere with this, honest with this. Probably you're gonna have a better relation with all the technology than all your bosses, than all the people that it's older than you. So the first thing I want to mention is you are going to be able to really improve the processes in the companies you are participating in. You are going to be able to simplify some of the tasks that are right now established as normal tasks in those jobs. And you're going to be able to, in some way, add additional efficiency to those companies, simply because you are going to be like more used to all the technology you can put in there. It's going to be, of course, it's going to be like some way of resistance to our to our changes that we are proposing. Of course, it's going to be some resistance. No worries about that. Just make your own tasks simpler. Just make your own tasks more automated, more tracked, more yeah. With the technology, you can just find with your browsers in your computers or mobile phones. So this is a really huge advantage for those that are, for the youngest ones coming into new shops. This is a big change. If you normalize the idea that you can improve all your tasks just introducing new technology, if you embrace that idea, you're gonna probably make a change in the organization you are working in.
Amazing. Thanks, Santi. And okay, I think Emily put one more question in there, and then after that, we will close it off. So Emily is asking, what type of skill sets do you recommend that interns and early career professionals develop to be able to compete in markets that are more and more tech-based?
If those skill sets are so well defined right now, but I would say, like, I mentioned some of them during the talk, and I'm thinking about how our critical thinking is working, because we have, every time we will have more and more information, and we have to decide which one is the good one, which one is useful for us, and to have a really good critical thinking on that, to understand which of all that information is real, how to organize it, how to learn about each point. It's one of the most important skills that I think we have to have, and you can exercise that just challenging the algorithms of the tools you are using. I'm thinking about, I don't know, Google News, YouTube, Instagram. If you challenge those algorithms just to show, to make them show you different things, you're going to be able to see different perspectives, and then you're going to be in some way training your critical thinking about what you are consuming in internet. And if I think in another skill, I will say that the adaptation to change is a really big skill we have to develop, and how to use technology in a critical way is another one. Thinking about this, I'm just encourage all of you to try technologies, to try to make a professional video with your cell phone, even when you are, I don't know, engineer, to try to make a program with a simple programming language, no matter which career are you following, to try to use another technology that you were not using, just for you to develop your digital skills. And I will say that we have to improve, and we have to see how the market is working on the new skills that we have to have because of the work changes, because of the remote work, for example, because of the hybrid work, for example. So yeah, those are the main that are coming to my mind, like, just now.
Thank you so much. I saw Emily taking notes there, so I'm pretty sure that was good advice. So we are at time. So thank you so much to everyone that joined today. And thank you, Santi, so much for such an informational session. Hopefully they create something to record our dreams in the future. But other than that, thank you guys. That that's the end of the session. Our next session will be in 2 weeks from now with Joanna Danger, and it will be a workshop on how to have a difficult conversation for feedback and how to make it easier and more effective. So I hope to see you guys soon, and thanks again.